Right, just to let everybody know, that's me started recording. Can't see where it's recording, but I did press the recording. So I am going to, there we are, somebody's already in. Okay, so I'm just going to, just letting everybody know that I have started recording. Okay, so I'm going to start everybody because that's 1:15. I realise that there will be people possibly still coming in, so we just let them in, and that's no problem. Okay, so good afternoon, everybody. My name is Leslie Malcolm, and as you can see, I'm a facilitator with Robertson Cooper. Robertson Cooper are a business psychologists. We're based in Manchester, albeit obviously we deliver all over the UK. And I'm up here in Glasgow in Scotland, actually delivering to you the beauty of the virtual platform, of course. And in terms of, if you like, Robertson Cooper themselves, their vision is to what they call create more good days at work. What is it that makes us enjoy work? What is it that gives us that ability to love our work and be able to encompass it and become engaged as a fundamental part of our life? And we in terms of Robertson, we believe that by addressing the workplace well-being in a more holistic way, a more strategic way, and with that that scientific rigor in terms of how that we review the data, and the organisation can hopefully unlock the full potential of their people. If we do the right things, if we're clear on how we have to do it, then hopefully we unlock the full potential of our people. And if we feel that we are that in terms of our workplace, that we are being recognised, if that we're being acknowledged in terms of what it is that we do, we feel good. So, but also we need to have that ability to be able to demonstrate that. And we've worked with a lot of organisations in terms of helping them measure well-being, put in place well-being strategies, and help them build frameworks to assess their progress against workplace well-being best practice. So today, for the next hour or so, I'm going to be talking about personal resilience with you. Now, I know that some of you may have already filled in the Resilience I report, and I will refer to it later on in the presentation. If you haven't, hopefully this might inspire you to perhaps go away and have a look at it, which helps you sort of understand, if to a certain extent, your approach to resilience from a personality perspective. So, at the end of the 60 minutes, what I can say is that you won't be more resilient, but you will hopefully be able to take action to build your own resilience. And, in terms of what we're doing today for the next hour, I know it might be tempting because we're all busy people to look at your emails or whatever whilst you're listening to me, but actually brain scans have shown us it's actually not possible to do this, or certainly not to do it well. You can't split your attention, and in actual fact, you actually tire yourself out because you're kind of using more energy than you need to do, and therefore, your energy levels are depleted, your personal resources are depleted. It tires you out, and as a result, you don't get things done in the best way they can be, and it impacts obviously your resilience. So put your phones away, shut your email down, and hopefully just for the next 55 minutes or so, just try and focus on this. And if you do want to ask any questions, at the minute there's about 18 of us, either just pop the little icon up, the little emoji. I think at the top of your screen you might see a little smiley face with a wee emoji like that. Perhaps just put the hand up, and that way certainly then you can open your mic and ask your question, or pop it in chat, whatever works for you. I'll have the chat opened because I know that there will be links that will be put in terms of some of the resources. And obviously in terms of the objectives today, we're going to be looking at what is resilience, and resilience can mean different things to different people, even at different times in their life, to be absolutely honest with you. But overall, trying to provide you with strategies and techniques to develop your resilience, because it's something that some of us are better at than others, but it's like anything else. It's a little bit like people talk about the resilience muscle, and And basically, even those of us that are incredibly toned and go to the gym all the time, we know that we can keep, I'm saying we as though that's me, but we can always do better, and we have to use it or lose it. You know, we have to maintain that resilience. So it is something we have to use and develop. And of course, how can you improve your resilience? So, as I said, feel free to ask any questions, make any points. Just let me know when you want to speak or pop it in chat. So section 1, what is resilience? Now, that's actually, I'm going to pop that question out there. So again, if anybody wants to answer or pop it in chat, please do. So if I was to say to you, I've just come from Mars and I keep hearing about this word resilience, what does it mean to you? You know, what does the word resilience mean? So the chat's now open. Somebody, I think we're saying, yep. So anybody, any thoughts on what resilience means to them? Thank you, Sophie. So that ability to cope. Yep, that's great. Anybody, anything else on that one? Being able to keep going in the face of adversity. Yes, absolutely. Thank you, Liz. Ability to keep going with tasks. Yeah, because you can just keep going regardless of what's going on. Yeah. Knowing what's in your control. Good one, Emily. Yes. Yeah. In terms of, and being able to let go what isn't within your control, and that in itself can be challenging as well, but being able to identify what's in your control and therefore putting something in place. Yeah. Yeah, I'll give you our definition. Oh, somebody's saying keep moving forward and not letting the circumstance or situation hold you back. So that ability, yeah, accepting the fact that there are challenges in life and being knocked down and then being able to get up again. Yeah. There are definitely many different ways of actually conceptualizing resilience. And the definition we're going to use today is that resilience refers to your ability to maintain your well-being and how you perform even during adversity and recovering from those setbacks. And that might be significant events or smaller everyday events. Anybody, any questions or sorry, any comments on that one? Does that seem a reasonable definition of resilience? I mean, it could be a little bit more complex than this. You know, for example, you might feel that you're resilient in some areas of your life, but perhaps not in others. And more resilient at different times in your life than at others, for example. So, as I mentioned, it is actually important to think about how we can practically develop our resilience, you know, rather than waiting to see how we actually adapt to particular situations, particularly difficult situations. And, you know, again, another definition, or one that's been quite popular, is the psychologist Christina Hibbert's definition. And I think a few people have kind of mentioned, referenced this. Defined resilience is that ability to bounce back after life tears you down. So, you know, we can maintain our well-being, we can still feel reasonably good regardless of what's going on in our life, and we can recover from those setbacks. Again, if anybody's any thoughts or anything like that, pop it in chat. So what we're going to look at is actually what influences our resilience. And, you know, as I said, we know, somebody's saying, and Sophie's saying, someone once described it as the amount you can bend before you break. I know I can see that one, yes, absolutely. And hopefully we're all, this helps us be more flexible so that we don't break, the more resilient we are. Yeah. So we know that our somebody's saying, I heard it described as a rubber band before. Yeah. So again, you can only pull that rubber band so far, isn't it? And but at the same time, how strong is your rubber band? So resilience is a combination of learned behaviours and skills and our own individual personality. You know, obviously that has to come into it as well. So from a personality perspective, you know, we've all got a different starting points then when it comes to resilience. We all have our own individual natural strengths and the risks associated with our personality that influence our individual resilience, because and personality does tend to stay quite static. So for those of you that have, and you can see the little picture of it on the screen, for those of you that have filled in the iResilience report so far, it's designed to help you support you in developing your ability to respond in a resilient way under pressure. So understanding how perhaps you, certainly when you filled in the report, how resilient, or it's not a measure of resilient, but what are the things that help or hinder your resilience. And so as a result, it helps you learn where you can develop your skills and behaviours in each of the 4 areas. And before we go into any of the detail of the report, I'll basically explain the 4 resilience strategies. But in terms of what we learn and our environment, thinking about learned behaviours first, and we've all got those learned behaviours that we learn from our parents, we learn from our siblings, school, etc. We know that resilience levels are impacted by our social environment. What's happening around us, the past experiences that we had, they very much will influence our view of something, and therefore possibly our resilience to it. But equally, for hopefully all of us, but not everybody, again, learns this, these experiences that challenge us through life, they might be difficult at the time, but they can actually help us learn new ways to cope. But obviously there are those people that just keep repeating the same thing over and over. But for the majority of us, hopefully, these challenges are learning experiences. As things change around, it can impact on how we cope and how resilient we feel. And if we take the pandemic, as an example, in terms of certainly the beginning of lockdown, some of us might have felt quite resilient. Others, it might have been a scary, scary time, depending on the challenges we had. If we were having to work from home, or if we were with people in the house with us, if we were on our own, if we were having to homeschool, if we were having to stay and work, but everybody else was at home, all the different challenges that we might have had. And if resilience goes down, it means it can catch up again. So resilience isn't really fixed, and we can work on developing our resilience day by day, by understanding what areas of resilience we can helpfully develop, and that puts us in a good place to cope with situations we find difficult. So being aware of the key strategies to build resilience helps us learn new ways of approaching and thinking about these particular challenges. And learning these particular skills, it takes a conscious effort. You have to consciously do it. But hopefully there are steps that you can take to make that change stick. And also, in terms of what influences our resilience, our energy management. We need to look after our body in order to help us look after our mind, and vice versa. Mental health equals physical health generally equals mental health. It's hard to work. It's hard to work on any resilience strategies or any personal development, frankly, if you feel lethargic, you feel tired, you feel down, etc. And whilst I'll talk a little bit later about energy management, sleep itself is one of the key building blocks in managing energy to help stay resilient. Because let's be honest, if we feel sleep deprived, we feel tired, we might even feel irritable, we're not really in a place to help us feel resilient. We give in much more easily. We don't make good choices about sometimes just general decisions. We don't make good choices about whether we exercise or not, which helps us feel better in ourselves. We don't make good choices in terms of things like our diet. And again, there's a huge amount of energy, huge amount of things that tell us that mental health equals nutritional health. So we need to make sure that we are, keeping ourselves at our best. So in terms of the various resilience strategies, research consistently shows that along with energy management, there are 4 key strategies that we can work on to be more resilient. So let's see, confidence. So this particular resilience strategy is about feeling that we can be confident and effective in coping with those difficult situations. It doesn't mean that we're 100% confident, but we have enough confidence in ourselves in order to help us move forward. And we've got good self-esteem. And where we have that strong self-esteem, that helps us do this. But it's also about being aware of the extent of which we're experiencing positive emotions versus negative ones. And clearly where we're experiencing more positive emotions, that positively impacts our resilience. But people tend to use this strategy more effectively, or who do use this strategy more effectively actually tend to have much more of a growth mindset. And that's they believe that they can continue to improve. They've got that confidence to know that they're a work in progress. We're never the finished image. And for some people, that's a hard thing to think about, that, I'm not perfect. I'm not 100%. But we know that is down to poor self-esteem. So where we believe that we can continue to learn, develop, and also continue to learn to have that positive self-talk and use mental rehearsal techniques to prepare us for those challenging situations, we become more confident. And of course, our confidence levels vary in different situations. We can be more confident in some scenarios and less than others. For example, you might be very socially confident, but less confident in taking a new project on at work, and obviously vice versa. Or it might be that you're ready and willing to take the lead when you need to, but when you think there's a chance of creating conflict, you perhaps back down too easily. So kind of understanding how you react in different situations is absolutely key, as having a good insight into your skills and abilities. And then the second one is purposefulness. And this strategy is about having a clear sense of purpose and values. And that's made up of a core set of beliefs that are not easily broken and can help you find meaning in the face of adversity. And that purpose in life, it gives us something to hold on to when things are tough, and we can retain that sense of perspective. And, where we can understand and are clear on our own personal values and our own personal purpose, it helps us on a day-to-day basis. It helps us set clear goals at work. It helps us organise and prioritise our days in terms of what's going to lead us most to our easiest to our purpose and achieve those objectives. For example, by being more assertive to find your way past obstacles and perhaps being determined to finish what you start, because it's important to you, it's important from a values perspective, and it's important from your purpose perspective. And again, where we have that purposefulness, we believe that we have this purpose or this goal, shall we say, that perseverance during those challenging times is a key part of that strategy. And basically, obviously as well, as long with forming helpful and healthy habits that allow you to stick to what you're trying to achieve. You're in a good place to be able to stick to what you're trying to achieve. But in order to do all of this, you have to understand what it is that's important to you and drives you to take action. And that's the first key step in building purposefulness. And then the third resilience strategy, social support. And those that actually use the social strategy build good relationships with others, and they seek support to help them overcome those difficult situations instead of trying to overcome them on their own. And it's actually said the happiest people are those that have the best social networks. Now, not the most, we're not talking about the most Facebook friends or the most Instagram followers or anything like that. We're talking about, those people we know we can rely on, those people we can vent to, those people that we know have got our back. And obviously that has been challenging to keep up those relationships over the last 18 months, particularly over using a platform. But where we have that social support and we create those good relationships, it's said that, as I said, they were happiest, and it's said actually people live longer where they have those good relationships, and they know they've got people that they can rely on. And and we are, whether we like it or not, we are social animals. Now I know we're all to different extents, but we're social animals. We need people around us at least some of the time, and as I said, the positive effect of that social support has been widely studied and actually shown to buffer against the effects of stress. So where we've got that person we can vent to, where we've got that person that we can talk about our issues, it actually helps us manage our stress more effectively. And of course, the type of support that we might need to remain resilient can obviously vary. And it might be informational support to help you understand what's going on. But it also might be emotional support, for reassurance. And I'm sure there's been times during the pandemic we've all needed that. But equally, it can be that more tangible type of support. Somebody making your dinner, somebody picking up your kids from school when you've got a problem, somebody knowing that you can call on for different types of support is absolutely key. So, and obviously nurturing your network by doing the same for those people that are giving you that support, reciprocity. So giving people your time and showing gratitude. And to be absolutely honest as well, where we give of ourselves, we feel good about ourselves. We know we've done a good thing, and that in itself boosts our confidence and our self-esteem because we've got that warm, fuzzy feeling. And where we're in that place where we can give gratitude, again, that's one of the key pillars of resilience in terms of that being able to be grateful for what we have in life. But the final resilience strategy is adaptability. And that's our ability, and certainly when I talked about, or I asked about the definition of resilience, this is probably one of the key things that people tend to think about when we think the word resilience. It's about our ability to flex and adapt in changing situations. And we all face change frequently. We're now living in the most, the greatest change of any other time in history, and it's just going to keep accelerating because, let's be honest, the technology's there, the genie's out of the bottle, we can't put it back. But that change, that frequent change, whether it's at work or whether it's in a personal life, it's just part of life now. And obviously for all of us, those changes can vary in their impact. For example, at work, they might range from moving desk to complete organisational restructure. And of course, for us to be able to cope with these changes successfully, we need to be able to adapt to new situations in that constructive way. And, again, we might find that we're very adaptable in certain situations and less so in others. And, and as to why that's the case can be really helpful, understanding why. Also can be where we can spot our thoughts and how our thoughts and behaviours are actually hindering us can and finding that a resilient level of adaptability. So where we've got those negative thoughts around the particular change, it's possibly hindering us. Where we have a particular behaviour, the minute something's mentioned, that can be hindering us. But where we're aware of it, we can make that change. So again, any thoughts on what they think they need to work on the most in terms of those particular 4 strategies? Is it your confidence? Is it your purposefulness? Is it your social support? Is it your adaptability? What for you is the biggest challenge? And there will be some that we favour naturally, and that we're particularly good at, and others that we need to work on. It's all very, very individual. So again, for those of you that have filled in the iResilience reports, I'm just going to talk round it a little bit. So this is part 1. And the actual report itself is a series of hypotheses based on how you answered the personality-based questionnaire. And personality is actually relatively stable. You know, we develop ways of adapting our natural style in different situations though. But where you've got an awareness of the strengths and the risks of your personality that enables you to manage them more effectively. You know, your personality won't change, but the skills and techniques can. But as I mentioned earlier, the report itself is not a measure of resilience. And the first part of the report, as I've shown there, is structured around the 4 key resilience strategies and the specific helps and hindrances for your resilience across each of the area. So as you see, column 1, what is it that's hindering your resilience in this particular person? It might be their level of straightforwardness. It might well be that they're a little bit more straightforward than they need to be, shall we say, and perhaps blunt, to the point of blunt, and that possibly is not helpful to them. And then on the other side, at the right-hand side, there's what helps your resilience. That person's degree of personal warmth, that person's degree of sociability, their level of trust, all of those things help them because people gravitate towards them, perhaps, in terms of how they, from a personal warmth and a sociability perspective. And then in the middle, it could be either or, depending on the situation, degree of consideration for others. So, and as it said there in that section, you might have that middle section is a statement that isn't classified either as a help or a hindrance. And that's because when you completed the questionnaire, you identified it, and you identified that you act in different ways in different circumstances when you answered the questionnaire. Because, and let's be honest, human behaviour is complex, and the iResilience report is very much personality based, but we know that behaviour can be influenced by the situation too. And the second part of your report, I don't know if I need that. Yeah, there we are. The second part of your report focuses on the implications of your personality specifically for the workplace. And we'll be getting to think more about this part of the report in follow-up emails. So those of you that have filled it in, you will be getting some follow-up emails around this part of the report. Anybody get any questions so far on the report? And thank you. We've asked for those of you that haven't filled it in the chat. There is the opportunity to actually fill in the report. Nothing so far. Okay. Okay. So section two, let's look at developing our resilience strategies. So in terms of the social support strategy, actually, I am going to show you a little video here by Robert Waldinger, and it's a particular strategy that began in Harvard in the 1930s, and it's actually the longest study on human behaviour so far. So I'm just going to stop presenting for a minute and just find the video for you. Just 1 second. So let me see, it's there, it's there. Just open it up and okay, you should be able to see that now, hopefully.
What keeps us healthy and happy as we go through life? Pictures of entire lives. Those pictures are almost impossible to get. The Harvard study of adult development may be the longest study of adult life that's ever been done. For 75 years, we've tracked the lives of 724 men, year after year, asking about their work, their home lives, their health. About 60 of our original 724 men are still alive, still participating in the study, most of them in their 90s. We don't just send them questionnaires. We interview them in their living rooms. We get their medical records from their doctors. We draw their blood. We scan their brains. what are the lessons that come from the tens of thousands of pages of information that we've generated? The clearest message that we get from this 75-year study is this: good relationships keep us happier and healthier. We've learned 3 big lessons about relationships. The first, it turns out that people who are more socially connected to family, to friends, to community are happier, they're physically healthier, and they live longer. And the experience of loneliness turns out to be toxic. People who are more isolated find that their health declines earlier in midlife, their brain functioning declines sooner, and they live shorter lives. So the second big lesson that we learned is that it's not just the number of friends you have, but it's the quality of your close relationships. High conflict marriages, for example, without much affection, turn out to be very bad for our health, perhaps worse than getting divorced. The people who were the most satisfied in their relationships at age 50 were the healthiest at age 80. And the third big lesson that we learned is that good relationships don't just protect our bodies, they protect our brains. In your 80s, the people who are in relationships where they really feel they can count on the other person in times of need, those people's memories stay sharper longer. So what about you? What might leaning into relationships even look like? It might be something as simple as replacing screen time with people time, or livening up a stale relationship by doing something new together, or reaching out to that family member who you haven't spoken to in years, because those all too common family feuds take a terrible toll on the people who hold the grudges. I'd like to close with a quote from Mark Twain. "There isn't time. So brief is life for bickerings, apologies, heartburnings, callings to account. There is only time for loving, and but an instant, so to speak, for that. The good life is built with good relationships." Thank you.
So I always think that's a really nice video. I think it very much demonstrates the importance of those good relationships. Anybody, any thoughts whilst I'm sort of trying to get you back again? Had anybody seen that video before? Oh, you're all very quiet. But I think it very much demonstrates the very specific importance of those good relationships. Just there we are. So the support strategy, and you know, as it said, having social connections is better for our health and well-being. Loneliness, and I think we've very much seen the dark side of that during the pandemic, where it did very much impact people's mental health negatively. So it can be very much detrimental to our health. And it's about quality. It's more important than number of connections. And as a result, obviously, from a community perspective, you know, that can play a big role. So it's not only good, so good relationships are not only good for our body, they're good for our brain. And you know, and one of the things that we can do to develop our resilience is actually is gratitude. You know, in terms of those good relationships, etc. There's somebody coming in. So, and that's, you know, that's not just about the things you're grateful for, but also the inner reflection about our own virtues. And some of the things, some of the ways that we can actually, you know, practice gratitude is perhaps keeping a daily gratitude journal. And as it says on the slide, you know, counting your blessings, writing down 3 things you're grateful for in the last 24 hours. In fact, a therapist friend of mine says that one of his most effective tools, now he was working with Grenfell survivors, is 3, as he calls it, 3 good things. And he says that writing down every night 3 things you're grateful for. Now, it doesn't have to be, pardon me, life-changing things. I'm really grateful for the fact the technology worked. I'm really grateful for the fact that here I am in Glasgow and it's beautiful outside, which, trust me, doesn't happen all the time. And actually, over time, if you're that glass half empty person, over time it starts to train your brain to become more grateful and actually to be more positive, which in itself helps us become more grateful. And that, again, that positivity is so inherent in terms of our ability to be resilient. You know, and another great one was the example of Haley Bartholomew, and again, that's she gave a good TED talk, and she undertook a year-long project of taking photos every day to help her find the things in her life that she was grateful for. And it started as a 10-minute, 10-day project to identify things that she was grateful for, but it sparked something else within her to see things in a different way, and she carried to make it a year-long project, and it made a significant impact in her life. So these were things that, you know, whereas I mentioned things that are very obvious, these were things that weren't obvious to her, but she realised she had so much in life to be grateful for. And then, of course, there's external gratitude, and that's about letting others know that you're grateful for what they do. And, you know, people underestimate the power and the value of just saying thank you. You know, and because of this underestimation, we don't always show gratitude as often as helpful for us and for those around us. And again, when we show that gratitude and that person feels good, we get the benefit of knowing we've done a good thing too. And again, we might not express gratitude because we assume that people already know they're appreciated. And sometimes, again, people can worry about seeming genuine or authentic. But typically those that are on the receiving end see the givers as warm and with good intent. And that expressing gratitude has a powerful effect. You know, researchers have asked people to write down and deliver a letter to someone to whom they were grateful for. And after the task, their happiness levels and life satisfaction, those that wrote the letter, were dramatically impacted in a positive way. And that actually lasted several weeks. So expressing gratitude not only helps people appreciate what they've received in life, but also helps people feel that they've given something back to those that have helped them. So, you know, again, and that might be something that you want to do is perhaps, you know, after this, is perhaps share any gratitude for anybody that you're grateful to, perhaps on the session or that you're working with. And maybe just share it. And again, if you've got anybody on here that you're grateful for anything, pop it in the group chat or send that person a private message. And of course, in terms of developing that social support, you know, there's things you can do today, but there's obvious things we can do in the longer terms. And, you know, realise that all the people that you have in your social network, sometimes we can feel lonely and feel isolated. But, you know, we need to see who we know and think about how we connect with them and the support that we can offer. Think about the different types of support people offer you. You know, Robert Waldinger's shown that good quality relationships are good for our health and our happiness and effectively our ability to thrive. But we can benefit from having a variety of different connections. Strong social ties are important, but so are those day-to-day interactions with a variety of different people we don't know as well. But that's not to say quantity is more important than quality, but even those day-to-day interactions, depending on how good they are, can make us feel good. And of course, when we talk about things like the work in progress activities, having a strong social network doesn't just happen. You know, your network can look after you, we need it, but only if you nurture and look after it too. So it's about quality interactions, working and having active and constructive interactions with people. You know, things to think about, how much do you actively listen to others? Do you take an interest in what they're telling you and ask questions versus being, you know, seemingly disinterested or failing to actively engage? You know, you're kind of just there, but you're not really taking it in. And the more that you nurture your connections with people, the stronger your support network and satisfaction in life. And, you know, nurture and develop your support network. Maintain regular connection with people is also important, both because it feels good and because it makes our connection stronger. So when we're low in resilience, we might find ourselves wanting to withdraw, you know, and perhaps isolate ourselves. But at this time, it's actually more important than ever that we make the effort to connect. So let's now look at purposefulness. And in terms of knowing purpose, knowing our own purpose is critical in helping us know what to do and how to do it. It enables us to focus our efforts on what matters most, regardless of the challenges or obstacles out there. But without knowing what's at the top of the purpose pyramid, we can feel disillusioned, we feel demotivated, we feel distracted, we might even feel despairing because we don't really know, you know, what it is we're focusing on. You know, and obviously at work, knowing your purpose is critical. If we don't know the purpose of our role and what we do, it's hard to direct our time and attention to know what we're supposed to do and to make those informed decisions. You know, and again, if you think about it, can you think of a time when you weren't sure of the purpose of your role, when, you know, perhaps it was new or whatever, and how did it make you feel? But equally, outside of work, think about all the things you do. You know, what are they contributing for? What's the purpose of them? You know, whether it's decorating your house or caring for your children, volunteering within your community, raising money, what's the purpose of the activities? And when you've got insight into your purpose, it makes it much easier to decide how you'll spend your time and to spot things that you're doing that aren't contributing to what you ultimately want. And obviously but equally, it's very important we don't overuse this strategy, because where we are constantly striving, if you like, for the purpose, it can lead to burnout, you know. But also it's important we do try and recognise and be aware of our own personal values. And sometimes the purpose can lead us to work hard and equally not create healthy boundaries. So, you know, yes, it's important we know our purpose, but equally it's not just about the purpose. There's other things in life too. So again, after the session, you know, write down your own purpose pyramid and see if you can see the clear link between your values, what you do and how society benefits. So of course, there's your core values at the bottom, because they're what, if you like, they're like the foundations. There's your contribution, what you do. And then we talk about the collective contribution. How does it align with those around you? You know, family, friends. And then how does society benefit the greater good? And then we have what we call the adaptability strategy. So, and again, there's obviously two ways for us to develop our adaptability. One is to adapt the way we cope with challenging situations. And the second is changing the way we think about those situations so that they don't necessarily feel challenging in the first place. So reframing our perspective on that particular situation. But obviously, let's look at the first one first, and that's the first thing, the way we cope, adapting the way we cope. So the first thing here is to work out the situations that challenge your resilience and identify anything you do in those situations that aren't basically helping your resilience. You know, and so if you think about a particular challenging situation, and is it that you panic? Is it that you just wait and see as opposed to actually taking action, for example? You know, so what is it how do you deal with particular situations? And as I said, there'll be some things you do very well. There'll be other things you don't do as well. And obviously those are the things that we definitely want to work on. But also, and one of the ways that kind of help us that is the next thing to do is to look at anything you're already doing that helps you cope with a situation. So for example, when you have a challenging situation, it might well be you want to take a walk and just clear your head. It might well be in the moment you want to do some deep breathing, and that helps calm you down and perhaps gives you that clarity of thought. It might well be that you might want to perhaps up your exercise, because we know that movement manages mood. And equally, sometimes when we are in a particularly challenging situation and the mind gets a bit fuzzy, Sometimes even doing things like jumping jacks or mountain climbers or jumping up and down, it generates those feel-good endorphins, which helps us perhaps manage the situation. But also things like talking to a friend, you know, coming back to those different support situations. Anybody pop in? Oh, thank you. Somebody's popped in the card, the thank you card. That's lovely. Anybody pop in the chat? What are your coping strategies? What is it that helps you cope in the face of adversity? Now, for me, I'm absolutely honest. I know that for me it's exercise. That if I am struggling, I do perhaps do some jumping jacks. I do something to just generate some of those feel-good endorphins and make me feel good. I always think back to, I don't know if anybody's ever watched Grey's Anatomy, and if for those of you that have, if you think back to the very early series, the two main characters were obviously two doctors, Meredith and Christina, and what they used to do when they had a really challenging situation is they'd go into one of the on-call rooms and they would dance it out, pop in their earpods and dance it out, and that was exactly what they were doing. You know, they were generating those feel-good endorphins. They were making themselves feel good in the moment to help them deal with the situation. And somebody saying it's their favourite show. Yes, I love it too. And somebody else has said talking to people who will listen. So yeah, just and that's so where people, you know, that people are listening to you. That makes you feel good, doesn't it? Because it makes you feel of value. Yoga, swimming, meditation. And meditation, yeah, as saying is can be hard when your mind is full. Yeah, absolutely. But we know that longer term, if we have a practice of meditation, then actually it becomes easier and easier over time. But for somebody, again, I'm sure a few of you are like this, somebody like myself, whose mind is very, very busy, I never found it easy. But over time, I found it easier, but it did take time, and actually started to reap the benefits, probably further down the road than other people, but the benefits are huge. But it's just being able to still your mind and get that clarity of thought. And Liz is saying, take a walk. Yeah, it's finding out what is it that we do, and you know, and where we have those healthy ways to help us cope with the situation. It actually helps us build our ability and our belief in our ability to cope. But equally, there might be some unhelpful things that we naturally go to, and that might be, you know, we might just go for the wine, for example, and have a glass of wine, and it's not necessarily the best coping mechanism because it doesn't necessarily make things better. And obviously, we know that if we keep doing that, the outcomes are very, very negative. But people can do those sort of things. You know, they'll perhaps use something like alcohol, or they'll bury their head in the sand and hope that it goes away, whatever it is. But there's, you know, there are unhealthy coping mechanisms as well. So we need to ask ourselves, are we using some of those perhaps? And somebody's saying, say hello to my cats, a lifesaver. Totally agree. Animals, absolutely. Basically help our stress levels, and just again that sense of gratitude, knowing that we're unconditionally loved, can be so important. But equally, there's some of us that can perhaps be too adaptable, and equally we need to be we might need to work more, being more consistent in the way that we approach things, because where we're chopping and changing, we perhaps don't develop the skills to use some of these strategies well. I'm not sure, Tracy, if we're getting the slides, but I'll find out for you. I would have thought that you would at least get a PDF, absolutely. So I'll make sure that that's sent on. Now, in terms of work in progress, the second part of the slide, you know, as I've already mentioned, some people find things like mindfulness a helpful coping mechanism and a way to develop more cognitive flexibility. And obviously, it doesn't take long to practice. Even over a 6-week period, we know that 10 minutes a day mindful meditation can change the brain. Research has shown us that. So, you know, if you can stick with it for six weeks, it's very likely that you will get those changes. Now, you do have to make it pretty much part of your lifestyle moving forward. But we know that, for example, the part of the brain at the back, which is our amygdala, actually reduces which is where rational thought is held, and the part of the brain at the front, which are prefrontal cortex, where is rational thought is housed, actually increases. So it does change our brain. It changes the way we think. And obviously, so that regular practice is key. But and also what it does is help us that greater emotional awareness, enabling us to manage our situations and our reactions better. And of course, I said there's two ways to become more adaptable, and one is to cope better, and the second is to think differently about situations that challenge our resilience. And this really is one of the key techniques to master if you want to develop your adaptability strategy. It's to understand the impact of our beliefs and our thoughts on our emotions and our behaviours. And obviously both of the last two techniques on this slide, i.e. mindfulness and reframing, help us to demonstrate how to do this. But we're also going to look at, if you like, the ABC model, which helps us reframe our situation. So, how our thinking can sabotage our resilience. So if we want to reframe how we think about situations, we need to understand the process of how our thoughts impact our emotions and our behaviours. And obviously that helps us spot our unhelpful thinking. So let's say you receive a message that your manager asks you to give you a call when you get the chance. Now, some of you, what might some people think on reading this message? We might think it's, oh my goodness, what does my manager want? Have I done something wrong? Others, it might be, oh, I've no idea what it is and I'm not bothered. But where we think either helpful or unhelpful thoughts, we need to get good at spotting the unhelpful ones. So if you're able to, spot the automatic thoughts in particular situations, that challenge your resilience and be able to challenge the unhelpful thoughts and replace it with something more useful, then it has a big impact. So for example, that event where a manager leaves us a note to call them when we've got a chance, as we said, that thought might be, oh my goodness, I must have done something wrong. And as a result, we feel down, we feel nervous, and perhaps we're not able to focus, and as a result, we don't do good work. Whereas when, regardless of what's happened and some of that can be coloured obviously by events that have happened in the past, but where we take that same example and we get that note that the manager wants to see us when we've got a minute, and where we think, oh, I wonder what he wants, and you're much more open to it, then obviously you feel better. You don't get the same sort of nervousness. It's, it could be where we have that thought, it could be 100 things that he wants. It could be absolutely anything. And as a result, I feel good about that situation. But the aim is here is to spot the unhelpful thoughts and those thinking errors that we all have. I mean, every single one of us, and replace them with more helpful and more rational ones. And sometimes it's just about thinking when we have that thought, the event happens, when we have that thought, actually saying, is this helpful? And if it's not helpful, because it's not written in stone, then we need to reframe it. And that will very much impact our feelings, i.e. we feel good about the situation or not good about the situation, and our subsequent actions. And then, of course, there is the confidence strategy. And again, psychologists have identified 3 main reasons why we aren't all super confident humans. And one is, if you like, the negativity bias. We register as human beings negative events more readily than we do positive ones, and therefore we dwell on these events much more so, and obviously the impact of that. And bad is stronger than good. Work done by relationship counsellor John Gottman suggested that in a ratio of 5:1, when it comes to negative and positive events, for every one negative event, you need a minimum of 5 positive ones to counterbalance the effect of the first one. So you need to experience 5 positive events just to get your emotional state back to where it started. And And negative is more truthful, and that, you know, and that's basically the hardwiring towards negativity that some people have, has been shown to affect how truthful we think something is. And recent research has shown that we're much more likely to see negatively framed statements as truthful compared to positive ones. And I think we can see that generally in the world. And there's some really good stuff around the negativity bias. www.verywellmind.com /negative bias 4589618. So there's some stuff around that might be quite useful. But it's all about developing confidence. So, you know, not focusing on the negative here. So strengths, research shows that using our strengths is related to, you know, better goal progress, satisfaction, higher subjective well-being, self-esteem, and basically, you know, a better quality of life and higher job satisfaction and engagement. And especially when we can demonstrate our strengths at work. And things like Carol Dweck's talk on the growth mindset, which is a great TED talk. If you haven't watched that, have a talk, look at that. It highlights the importance of believing we can grow, we can change, we can develop. And again, coming back to that whole point of being open to believing that we're not the finished article. So, you know, have a look at that if you haven't already. And, you know, and again, it helps us be able to recognise when we're setting unrealistic expectations and show self-compassion to ourselves. And this links into the idea, as we've talked about, of self-talk. You know, we can talk to ourselves positively and negatively, but negative self-talk has a lasting impact on our confidence. And research shows that self-talk matters for both how we feel, i.e. our emotions, and our performance. And research showing that it can be learned, which is obviously why we're discussing this today. But the first step involves recognising your self-talk, you know, and that is stepping back in a situation and saying, what am I thinking here? Is it positive or is it negative? And then perhaps shifting gears, you know, changing that self-talk can be done by consciously shifting that gear, moving yourself out of a negative self-talk gear into one that's more positive, and recognising the clear demarcation between negative and positive self-talk. And of course, our inner circle. It's said that you are the sum of the 5 people you spend most time with. So if you're spending your time with what I would call 5 mood hoovers, i.e. those people that walk into the room and just hoover up the good mood by their negativity, then it might trigger a more negative response and a more lasting negativity from yourself. So be clear about who you're surrounding yourself with. And, you know, to grow our confidence, we need to continue to develop ourselves and learn new things. And, you know, that's as simple as thinking one thing you want to learn to do or finding more about it, and set yourself a challenge to make it happen. So, turning your learning into action. Well, you know, as I said, resilience is our ability to stay well when things get tough. You know, so life happens. We know that, you know, things get tough for us all, but how do we stay well? How do we stay on the horse to a certain extent? And the 4 things that help us build our resilience is maintaining our confidence or growing our confidence, adaptability. And again, that can be challenging at different points in our lives, and some of us just don't like change, but understanding that we have to be adaptable in this ever-changing world. Understanding our purpose, giving us, that's almost our roadmap of our life, and building those good relationships, i.e. that social support. But it is also about balance, and we need all 4 fairly well balanced. So we're not drawing too much or too little on any one of those strategies. But as I mentioned right at the very start, resilience is like a muscle. It can be developed, but we just have to consciously move towards it. We put those strategies in place and consciously move towards it. But like anything else, it's use it or lose it. You know, when you get to that place in the gym where, you know, like the muscle, where you look all toned and you're really pleased with yourself, that doesn't mean you can start eating the pies. You have to maintain it, and resilience is exactly the same. So I'm pretty much at the end of my session, folks. Has anybody got any final questions? What is it that perhaps, oh, mood hoovers, somebody likes that. Anybody get any final questions or thoughts, or anything that's resonated with you that perhaps you're going to work on? Just pop it in the chat. I'm sure you've all got lots of things, so I'll not put you under too much pressure, but pretty much, you know, I hope everybody's enjoyed today. I hope you've got something something out of it. And just to say thank you very much, everybody, and have a great day. And remember, if you haven't already done the iResilience report, then, you know, it's there for you to look at. So thank you very much, everybody. Thank you for that little round of applause from somebody. So, and I'll hopefully see you all soon. Thank you. Thank you. Glad you enjoyed it. Thanks.
Why Bina have stayed on.